There is a specific kind of exhaustion that has no medical name. It does not come from overwork or lack of sleep. It comes from repeatedly extending yourself toward people who were never going to change. From pouring your time, your energy, your patience, your actual life into human beings who consumed everything you offered and remained exactly as they were. Sometimes worse. Most people never identify this pattern clearly. They call it bad luck. They call it caring too much. They call it the cost of being a good person. What it actually is a failure of discernment. And discernment in a world that rewards strategy over sentiment is not a luxury. It is survival. What follows is not cynicism. It is precision. 5 types of people who, when identified, should be released, not with anger, not with drama, but with the cold, final clarity of a man who has decided that his energy is finite and his life is not a rehabilitation program. Type 1. The permanent victim. There is a person in almost every life who has suffered enormously and decided beneath conscious awareness that the suffering is the most valuable thing they possess. Not because they are malicious, but because the identity of the wounded has become so load-bearing in the architecture of who they are that removing it would collapse the entire structure. The pain is not a problem they are trying to solve. It is the foundation they are trying to protect. You will recognize this person once you stop being patient long enough to see the pattern beneath the incidents. Every solution you offer is met with a reason it will not work. Every improvement in their circumstances is followed almost immediately by a new crisis of equivalent weight. The suffering is never resolved, not because resolution is impossible, but because resolution would require them to become someone no longer defined by what happened to them. And that is the one transformation they refuse to make. Carl Jung understood this with disturbing precision. The unconscious mind will protect its most entrenched stories at all costs, not because those stories serve the person well, but because they are familiar. The permanent victim genuinely experiences the world as something that acts upon them. But your compassion, no matter how vast, cannot reach the layer where the actual decision lives. That decision is below language, below reason, and it will outlast every conversation you have ever had with them. The longer you remain in proximity to permanent victimhood, the more it reorganizes your own psychology. You start to see yourself as responsible for their condition. You measure your worth by whether you can fix what they refuse to fix. You become a supporting character in their story of helplessness, and your own story stalls entirely. This is where people lose power, not in dramatic confrontations, but in the slow, invisible donation of self to someone who has made a career of receiving. Your presence is not accelerating their healing. It is providing the conditions under which they do not have to heal. Release them, not because their pain is not real, but because your presence is not the variable that will change it. Only they possess that variable. And until they choose to use it, your proximity is not help. It is a more comfortable version of the problem. Type 2. The covert saboteur. This type is more dangerous than the first, precisely because they are harder to identify. They do not announce their hostility. They support you with their words, while systematically undermining you with their actions, their timing, their omissions, and the precisely placed doubts they introduce into your thinking at the moments you are most vulnerable. Machiavelli wrote that the most dangerous enemy is the one who does not present themselves as an enemy at all. The covert saboteur is present at your successes, but ensures their presence benefits them more than it benefits you. They offer advice calibrated to keep you uncertain, not so uncertain you stop moving, but uncertain enough that your movement is hesitant and slower than it should be. They celebrate just enough to maintain plausible deniability, but the net effect of their presence is always the same. You are smaller for it. The covert saboteur often genuinely believes they are helping. Their investment in your remaining beneath them is so thoroughly unconscious, they are not aware of the role they are playing. They have arranged their psychology so that your advancement registers as a threat, and that threat activates behavior designed to neutralize it, all without conscious intention, all with the sincere self-image of a supportive presence. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Stop examining individual conversations and examine the pattern. After every sustained interaction with this person, which way are you pointed? Toward clarity and capability, or slightly away from it? Toward confidence, or toward a low-grade uncertainty that is impossible to name, but impossible to ignore? The individual moments may seem innocuous. The trajectory across all of them reveals the truth. Most people never realize this until years have passed, and they examine ambitions never executed, opportunities never taken, and find this person present at every inflection point. Remove them. The silence they leave behind is not a loss. It is the first quiet in which your own thinking can finally be heard. Type 3. The emotional blackmailer. Power operates through leverage. This has been true in every era, across every culture, in every domain of human interaction. The emotional blackmailer has identified one specific lever, your care for them, and learned to pull it with precision every time you attempt to establish a boundary, exercise independent judgment, or place your own needs above theirs. The mechanism is rarely loud. More often, it is devastatingly quiet. It is the wounded silence after you say no. It is the fragility that appears exactly when you are attempting to grow in a direction they cannot follow. It is the crisis that materializes the moment you become unavailable. It is the implication, never quite stated, always present, that your care is measurable by how much of yourself you sacrifice to maintain their comfort. Schopenhauer observed that the will does not concern itself with the means by which it achieves its ends. The emotional blackmailer's will has learned that vulnerability is more effective than force, that tears extract more compliance than demands, that the performance of suffering is a more reliable lever than open confrontation. This does not make them evil. It makes them effective. And your continued responsiveness to the lever makes you complicit in your own manipulation. Compassion extracted through guilt is not compassion. It is a transaction in which you are always paying and they are always receiving. And the price increases over time as the lever is refined through use. The relationship is not built on mutual care. It is built on the weaponization of your capacity for care. Releasing this type requires tolerating being perceived as the one who failed them. That perception will be cultivated and communicated to others. Endure it. The alternative is a life in which your capacity to care remains permanently held hostage by someone who understood its value far better than you did, and chose extraction over reciprocity every single time. Type 4. The ideological addict. Every person carries a model of the world. Most people update that model as evidence accumulates, slowly, imperfectly, but ultimately. The ideological addict does not. They have selected a narrative about themselves and the world, and they will defend it against any contradicting evidence with a ferocity that has nothing to do with reason and everything to do with the fact that the narrative has become indistinguishable from their identity. This type appears in many forms. The person committed to believing the world is arranged against them, reinterpreting every piece of evidence to confirm it. The person who has decided they are exceptional and dismisses every consequence of their behavior as others failing to recognize it. The person who has built their entire life around a grievance and rejects every opportunity for resolution because the grievance is now the foundation. Remove it, and there is nothing left to be. Sun Tzu understood that the warrior who cannot read reality as it actually is will always lose, regardless of the skill or force they bring. The ideological addict cannot read reality. They are reading a story, and the danger of remaining close to this type is not that they will argue with you successfully. It is that stories are contagious. Prolonged exposure to a fixed narrative gradually distorts your own perception of what is possible. What makes this type specifically exhausting is that they are often intelligent, but that intelligence has been entirely conscripted into defending the narrative. Every counterargument is absorbed and reframed, every contradiction explained away. The intelligence that could have built something extraordinary is instead used as fortification around a story that keeps them perfectly, permanently still. And they will invite you, with the language of loyalty, to remain still beside them. The world rewards strategy, not innocence. Release the ideological addict with the recognition that their narrative is their choice, and remaining in its orbit was never yours to make by default. Type 5. The energy parasite. The final type is the most difficult to articulate because it operates below the threshold of specific, nameable behaviors. This person does nothing you can point to definitively. They do not sabotage. They do not blackmail. They are not trapped in victimhood or ideology. They are simply people in whose presence your energy consistently, reliably, and inexplicably diminishes. You leave every interaction slightly less than you arrived. Your clarity is foggier, your direction less certain. Your motivation has a quality of punctured weight that takes hours to restore. You examine the conversation afterward and cannot identify the specific moment that produced the effect. You can only observe, with increasing consistency, what you have become in their aftermath, measurably less capable than what you were before. Jung would recognize this as psychological depletion that occurs when two interior systems interact, and one consistently draws from the other without return. Some people, through their unprocessed anxiety, their unexamined neediness, their unconscious demand for the constant confirmation of your regard, extract something genuinely real from the quality of your inner life. The extraction leaves no marks, it generates no evidence, but its cumulative effect compounds over time in ways impossible to calculate and impossible to deny. The energy parasite rarely operates with conscious intent. They are functioning from such profound internal emptiness that they generate a vacuum wherever they go. and that vacuum draws from whoever is nearest with the same indifference that a physical vacuum exerts on air. If you are the nearest, consistently and by choice, you are the resource being consumed. The defense is the simplest and the most difficult of all five. It is distance, not dramatic distance, simply the quiet, consistent, non-negotiable choice to spend less time in spaces that leave you less capable of being who you need to be. You owe no one an explanation for protecting the quality of your own consciousness. That is not selfishness. It is the foundational act of self-preservation, without which nothing else you build will hold. 5 types, not 5 categories of bad people. 5 patterns of dynamic that, when maintained without examination, guarantee the slow depletion of the person you are capable of becoming. The permanent victim who made suffering into identity. The covert saboteur who neutralized your advancement without fingerprints. The emotional blackmailer who held your care hostage. The ideological addict who chose their narrative over reality. And the energy parasite who left no evidence and extracted everything. Releasing these people is not cruelty. It is the recognition that proximity is among the most finite resources you possess, and that it has been allocated by guilt, by sentiment, by the fear of being perceived as cold, rather than by design. For long enough. Decide what you are building. Decide who belongs near it, and release, without apology, everyone whose sustained presence makes the building impossible.